The vastness of space stretched endlessly, a dark canvas dotted with stars that twinkled like distant fires. The Galactic Empire prided itself on knowing every corner of its territory, on cataloging every ship, every planet, every life form within its reach. For centuries, the Empire had maintained control, keeping trade routes safe, enforcing laws, and ensuring that no outsider could challenge its authority. It was a system built on precision, observation, and overwhelming power. Yet that night, the Empire's sense of control was shattered. In the command room of one of the Empire's most advanced observation stations, officers were performing routine checks on nearby star systems. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the occasional beep of a scanner detecting celestial objects. Officers leaned over screens, adjusting coordinates and verifying data, confident that nothing could escape their meticulous records. And then a blip appeared. It was small at first, a faint signature on the edge of a star system where no registered ship should have been. The officers frowned. Their scanners were precise. Everything in the Empire's space had been logged. Every ship, from the smallest supply vessel to the largest warship, had a record somewhere in the massive central database. This, however, had no record. It was as if it had appeared out of nowhere. "Report this to command," an officer muttered, but before anyone could act, the blip started moving. Slowly at first, then faster than any known ship should be capable of moving. The officers exchanged nervous glances. It was not only unregistered, but it was also moving with purpose, heading straight toward the inner territories. The alarm bells rang silently in the minds of the observers. Something that was not recorded and moving at impossible speeds was not just a curiosity. It was a threat. Commanders convened immediately. The room, which moments ago had been calm, filled with the tension of uncertainty. Hushed voices spoke over one another. Analysts cross-referenced every database, every ship schematic ever recorded, and still nothing matched. "It's not in any archives," one of the senior analysts said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It doesn't exist. Not in any form we know." The words hung in the air. To the Galactic Empire, this was unthinkable. Every ship, every blueprint, every weapon had been accounted for. How could something this large, this sophisticated exist and yet remain entirely hidden? The officers watched as the ship moved closer, its energy signature flickering in ways that defied standard physics. It did not glide like a normal ship, nor did it follow predictable paths. It adapted, as if it could anticipate the scanners tracking it. Every maneuver was precise, calculated, and unsettlingly intelligent. The Empire's top intelligence officers were brought in. Their role was to identify threats before they became problems, to foresee attacks before they were launched. Yet even they were perplexed. There was no known civilization, no secret faction, no hidden fleet that could explain what they were witnessing. And the more they studied it, the more they realized that their conventional understanding of spacefaring technology was inadequate. Panic began to spread among the higher ranks. They were not accustomed to not knowing, to being unprepared. Orders were issued to intercept, but the ship's speed and agility made it impossible to catch. For every maneuver the Empire attempted, the vessel responded with something even faster, slipping away like water through a net. Speculation ran rampant. Could it be an experimental human ship? That thought alone sent a ripple of unease across the room. Humans had always been underestimated by the Empire. They were unpredictable, their technological advancements often hidden behind layers of secrecy. And if this was indeed a human creation, it was far beyond anything the Empire had encountered before. Officers tried to communicate, opening all possible channels, broadcasting standard hailing frequencies. There was no response, only the faint echo of the ship's passage through space. Yet there was a sense almost palpable that the vessel was aware of them. It seemed to anticipate every movement, every calculation, as if it were reading their strategies before they were even made. The Empire had trained for threats, from internal rebellions to hostile alien invasions, yet this was unlike anything in their manuals. This was not merely a ship. This was a presence, a force that operated by rules the Empire could not comprehend. As hours passed, the tension only grew. News traveled through the Empire's networks. Fleets were dispatched to intercept, but reports returned the same. The ship moved too fast, disappeared too quickly, and left no trace behind. Panic began to seep into discussions of strategy. High-ranking officials realized that their fleets, which had once been a symbol of unstoppable power, were now inadequate. The realization was terrifying. Rumors began to circulate. Some whispered that this could be a prelude to war, an advanced human attack that the Empire had not foreseen. Others suggested it was a warning, a test to see how the Empire would react to something beyond its control. The speculation only heightened the anxiety, spreading uncertainty through every branch of command. At the observation station, officers continued to track the ship, noting its behavior. Every detail was recorded meticulously: the way it accelerated, the unusual energy fluctuations, the apparent intelligence behind each movement. Yet no matter how carefully they studied it, the vessel remained an enigma. It was not merely invisible to the Empire's knowledge, it was beyond it. By the end of the first day, the initial shock had settled into a chilling awareness. The Empire had been blindsided. For centuries, they had believed themselves untouchable, all-powerful in a galaxy of predictable systems and known threats. And now, that certainty was gone. The unregistered ship had arrived, not with a fleet, not with destruction, but with something far more unsettling. It had arrived with the knowledge that the Empire was not omnipotent, that its understanding of the galaxy was incomplete. It moved with a calm purpose, like a shadow in the night, forcing the Empire to confront its own limitations. As the officers and analysts worked through the night, tracking every movement and analyzing every signal, the fear in the room was quiet but profound. This ship was a reminder that no matter how much power the Empire wielded, there were always unknowns, mysteries that could not be controlled or predicted. And somewhere, far beyond the scanners and the fleets, the ship continued its journey. Its destination was unknown, its purpose hidden. But one thing was certain: the Galactic Empire had never faced anything like this before, and the events that followed would challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place within it. By the time the first light of the next galactic day reached the observation station, the officers were exhausted but unable to look away. Every new scan, every movement, every data point was a puzzle piece in a picture they could not yet understand. Yet even in the midst of confusion and fear, a quiet sense of awe had begun to grow. There was something remarkable about this ship, something beyond records, beyond history and beyond comprehension. The Empire, for the first time in centuries, realized that it was not the sole master of the stars, and the arrival of this unknown ship was just the beginning of a story that would forever change the galaxy. After the first day of confusion and fear, the Galactic Empire realized that tracking the mysterious ship was only the beginning. The officers at the observation station were no longer simply recording data. They were trying to understand a force that seemed almost alive. It moved with intention, anticipating every move the Empire tried to make. Every scanner, every probe, every maneuver seemed ineffective. The Empire decided to escalate. Fleets that had been patrolling the outer systems were ordered to converge. Massive warships, bristling with weapons and shields, were dispatched to intercept the unknown vessel. Officers who had once been confident in their superiority now found themselves studying every signal with a mix of anxiety and disbelief. They had faced rebels, smugglers, and even hostile alien civilizations before, but nothing in their training or history prepared them for this. Reports came back quickly. The ship was fast, faster than anything in the Empire's records. It moved unpredictably yet never recklessly. It avoided patrols without slowing down, threading through asteroid fields and debris belts as if the obstacles were invisible. Analysts attempted to calculate its course, but every prediction failed. It was as if the ship was thinking several steps ahead, adjusting to every maneuver before it happened. In the strategy rooms of the Empire's high command, officers debated how to respond. The usual tactics, blockades, ambushes, overwhelming force, were considered and discarded. Nothing worked. The ship did not react to their attacks in ways that could be traced or studied. It seemed almost untouchable. Some suggested caution. Perhaps it was not hostile. Perhaps it was simply exploring or testing the Empire's readiness. But others feared that waiting could be dangerous. If the ship had advanced weapons, the Empire could be at risk. The debate continued for hours. Voices rising and falling, theories clashing with experience. No one could agree on a course of action. Meanwhile, at the observation station, analysts were working around the clock to understand the ship's technology. They noticed patterns in its energy signatures that did not match any known propulsion systems. Its shields fluctuated in ways that suggested adaptability, reacting to every scan, every probe, every signal sent toward it. They could not find a weakness no matter how closely they examined it. Rumors began to circulate among the officers. Whispers about humans, long considered a minor species in the galaxy, began to spread. Some believed this could be a human creation, hidden from records for centuries, a relic of a secret technological program. Others suggested it could be a new civilization entirely, one that had been hiding in the shadows of the galaxy, watching and waiting. As fleets maneuvered closer, attempts at communication were made. Hailing signals were sent in every frequency, in every language, but there was no direct response. The ship emitted signals of its own, but they were encrypted and unfamiliar, impossible to decode with the Empire's current systems. Officers stared at the readings, frustration building. They had expected resistance or submission, but not silence or something more intelligent than they could understand. Days passed, and the Empire's anxiety grew. High-ranking officials convened emergency meetings. Maps of the galaxy were spread out across tables plotting the ship's path. Advisors and commanders debated endlessly, but the conclusion was always the same. They could not predict it, could not stop it, and did not understand it. The Empire's confidence was eroding. Fleets that had once been symbols of absolute power now seemed like fragile constructs against this unknown force. Reports of the ship's movements caused panic in some sectors. Trade convoys were delayed, defensive positions were reinforced, and civilian colonies watched the sky warily, aware that something extraordinary was moving through space near them. At the observation station, a sense of awe began to mix with the fear. Scientists and officers could not take their eyes off the readings. They observed how the ship maneuvered, noticing that it avoided unnecessary conflicts, rarely attacking or engaging unless provoked. It seemed efficient, calculating, almost as if it had a purpose that was beyond the Empire's understanding. Some officers began to speculate about its motives. Was it exploring, testing, or delivering a message? Or was it scouting for something more dangerous? The uncertainty gnawed at everyone. Unlike previous threats, this one was not clear, not straightforward. It was intelligent, patient, and enigmatic. The Empire decided to take a more aggressive approach. Advanced ships were sent to form a perimeter, attempting to funnel the mysterious vessel into a controlled area. Every move was monitored, every approach calculated to corner it. Yet each attempt failed. The ship seemed to anticipate the Empire's tactics before they were executed. Every maneuver led to dead ends, leaving the fleets frustrated and the officers questioning their understanding of space, physics, and strategy. Communication remained impossible. Attempts at negotiation yielded no results. The encrypted signals that the ship emitted could not be cracked. Analysts worked tirelessly, running calculations and simulations, trying to predict its behavior. But each model failed, each prediction fell short. The ship continued its journey, steady, deliberate, and untouchable. Rumors within the Empire grew louder. Some officers suggested withdrawing fleets, admitting defeat in certain sectors. Others insisted on escalation, arguing that retreat would signal weakness. Tension mounted at every command center. Fear, frustration, and awe intertwined, creating a sense of helplessness that few in the Empire had ever felt. The mysterious ship became the subject of every conversation. Scientists debated its energy signature. Strategists debated its movements. Officers debated its purpose. Everyone had questions but no answers. It was as if the universe itself had sent a challenge, one the Empire could not yet comprehend. Even the civilian populations were not immune to the growing anxiety. News of the unregistered ship spread through communication networks. Rumors, exaggerations, and speculation painted it as a harbinger of war, a destroyer of worlds, or a marvel of human engineering. People watched the stars, wondering when or if it would appear near their systems. For the officers and analysts tracking it, the work became an obsession. Every detail mattered, every anomaly was scrutinized. Sleep was scarce, tension was high, and yet there was a strange fascination. They were witnessing something extraordinary, something that challenged everything they knew. The ship was not just a threat. It was a revelation, a glimpse of possibilities beyond the Empire's understanding. By the end of the second galactic day, the Empire faced a critical decision. They could continue sending fleets to intercept a ship they could not catch, risking resources and morale. Or they could step back, study it more, and attempt to understand what they were dealing with before taking action. No choice was easy. Every option carried risk, and the unknown loomed larger than ever. Even in the corridors of power, a quiet sense of fear settled. The High Council, accustomed to control and certainty, now faced unpredictability. Their maps, their records, and their fleets, everything they relied upon, had failed to contain this unknown presence. They realized, perhaps for the first time, that there were forces in the galaxy beyond their knowledge, beyond their control, and beyond their imagination. Meanwhile, the ship continued its journey. Its path remained deliberate, its movements precise, and its purpose hidden. It was a force that defied categorization, a presence that challenged the Empire's sense of order. And as it moved deeper into the Empire's space, it became clear that this was only the beginning. The Galactic Empire, for all its power and history, had encountered something it could not define, could not predict, and could not stop. The officers and analysts tracking the ship understood one undeniable truth: the galaxy had changed. The rules they had relied upon for centuries no longer applied. The unknown ship had arrived, and with it, a new reality, one in which the Empire was no longer the unquestioned master of the stars. As the night fell across countless worlds, fleets continued their futile pursuit, officers continued their calculations, and civilians watched the skies. The mysterious vessel moved onward, a shadow in the darkness, a puzzle that would take the Empire years, or perhaps longer, to understand. It was fast, it was intelligent, and it was beyond reach. For the first time in the Empire's history, they realized that the universe was not theirs to command. And the presence of the unknown ship served as a constant reminder. Some mysteries cannot be ignored, some forces cannot be controlled, and some challenges cannot be met with power alone. The Empire had been shaken, its confidence fractured. But for the people watching the stars, for the officers recording the blips, and for the strategists calculating the impossible, one thought lingered. The galaxy had opened a new chapter, and they were only at the beginning of a story that would change everything. By the time the third day arrived, the Galactic Empire realized that waiting and observing was no longer enough. The mysterious ship had moved farther into their territory, and its movements were no longer subtle. It seemed deliberate, almost purposeful, threading through space with precision that defied understanding. The Empire's leaders could no longer treat it as an anomaly. They had to respond. The first step was to assemble a strike force. The fastest ships in the Empire's fleet were mobilized, their engines humming with raw power. Warships lined up in formation, bristling with weapons, shields fully activated, ready to intercept the intruder. Commanders and officers studied the latest data feeds, plotting interception points and predicting possible maneuvers. Every calculation mattered because they could not afford failure. Yet even as they planned, a quiet unease lingered. Officers at the observation stations noticed something new. The ship appeared to adjust its path whenever it detected multiple fleets. It did not flee in panic, nor did it attack directly. Instead, it moved with careful avoidance, choosing trajectories that minimized risk but maintained speed. It was not reckless, yet it could not be caught. Every tactic the Empire tried was countered before it could succeed. The strike fleets launched, moving through the void with precision and urgency. They expected to find a ship that could be cornered, trapped, or outmaneuvered. What they found was something else entirely. The ship seemed aware of their approach before they even arrived at the predicted coordinates. It shifted course subtly, almost casually, and the fleets found themselves pursuing shadows that vanished as soon as they came close. In the command rooms, frustration and disbelief grew. Officers and analysts pored over the data, running simulations and recalculating strategies. Every possibility had been considered, yet nothing worked. The ship defied expectations, moving faster, more efficiently, and with a level of intelligence that the Empire had never encountered. Some commanders began to worry aloud. Was this truly a ship or something more? The way it moved suggested thought, planning, and awareness beyond normal technology. Could it anticipate every move the Empire made because it had advanced artificial intelligence? Or was it controlled by a civilization far beyond the Empire's understanding? The speculation was endless, but the fear was very real. Attempts to communicate continued. Standard hailing frequencies, coded messages, and even encrypted diplomatic signals were sent. The ship responded in ways that could not be decoded. Its signals were structured, deliberate, and intelligent, but they did not match any known language or pattern. Analysts worked tirelessly, trying to interpret the signals, hoping to find a clue to its motives or origins. But each effort led only to more questions. The Empire decided to escalate further. The strike fleets were ordered to take more aggressive positions, attempting to funnel the ship into zones where the Empire's firepower could be concentrated. This was a calculated risk. If the ship engaged in combat, the results could be catastrophic. But waiting had proven useless. They had to act. As the fleets closed in, the ship continued its journey, moving as if it were aware of every trap, every ambush, every calculation made against it. It avoided the densest regions of patrols, yet never slowed down. It passed through asteroid belts, debris fields, and gravitational anomalies with astonishing precision. The fleets, which prided themselves on speed and efficiency, struggled to keep pace. On board the observation station, officers began to notice subtle patterns. The ship's path was not random. It had a rhythm, a direction, a goal, yet the purpose was unclear. It did not attack populated systems, it did not destroy outposts, and it avoided confrontations whenever possible. Its actions suggested intelligence, strategy, and patience beyond the Empire's understanding. High-ranking officials debated strategy in urgent meetings. Some argued that the ship must be forced into combat to understand its capabilities. Others warned that provoking it could lead to disaster. The lack of knowledge was a liability, but inaction was equally dangerous. Every choice carried risk. The room was filled with tension, voices rising and falling, frustration mixing with fear. Meanwhile, the fleet commanders faced the practical challenges of pursuing an opponent they could not predict. Each maneuver, each acceleration, each adjustment they made was met with a countermove they could not foresee. Communications between ships crackled with concern as officers reported their inability to close the distance. The ship seemed to move as if it knew the outcome before it even began. Analysts studied every detail obsessively. The ship's shields fluctuated in response to every scan, adapting in real time. Its engines produced energy signatures that did not match any known propulsion system. Every measurement suggested advanced technology beyond the Empire's current understanding. Officers whispered about human ingenuity, recalling that humans had been underestimated for centuries. Could this be a human creation, hidden and perfected in secret? Or was it the product of a civilization the Empire had never encountered before? The Empire decided to combine strategy with observation. Instead of direct attacks, fleets were arranged to create overlapping zones of monitoring, attempting to anticipate the ship's next move. Yet even this approach failed. The ship did not panic, it did not flee. It simply moved with purpose, threading through gaps the Empire had not even considered. Every calculation was countered. Every prediction proved wrong. Tension within the Empire grew. Officers who had once been confident in their knowledge now questioned everything. Maps, star charts, and historical data offered no guidance. The unknown ship had shattered their sense of control. It was no longer just an anomaly. It was a challenge to everything the Empire thought it knew about space, strategy, and power. Despite the frustration, there was fascination. Analysts and officers could not look away. They recorded every detail, plotted every movement, and studied every signal. The ship was a puzzle, a mystery that demanded attention. Its precision, intelligence, and adaptability were awe-inspiring, even as they provoked fear. Civilians within the Empire also began to notice. News of the unknown ship spread through communication networks. People speculated about its origin, its purpose, and its power. Some imagined a threat, a harbinger of war. Others wondered if it was a marvel, a glimpse of technology far beyond what they had seen. The ship became a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that even in a vast, controlled empire there were forces beyond comprehension. As days turned into nights, the pursuit continued. The strike fleets adjusted formations, tried new tactics, and experimented with new approaches. Yet nothing worked. The ship continued its journey, moving with calculated calm. Every attempt to trap it ended in failure, leaving fleets frustrated, exhausted, and increasingly uncertain. Some officers began to consider the possibility that direct engagement might never succeed. Perhaps the ship could not be caught. Perhaps it could not be forced into combat. The idea was unsettling. For centuries, the Empire had believed that any threat could be neutralized with enough force or strategy. Now, for the first time, they faced the possibility that something could operate beyond their reach. The Empire's leaders faced a difficult choice. They could continue pursuing a ship that defied their tactics, wasting resources and risking morale. Or they could step back, observe, and try to understand, hoping to gain insight into its technology, purpose, and capabilities. No choice was without risk. Every decision carried the potential for failure, and every failure could have consequences for the entire Empire. The mysterious ship moved on, unaffected by the Empire's frustration and anxiety. It did not slow, it did not panic, and it did not change course unnecessarily. Its movements were deliberate, intelligent, and precise. It was a force the Empire could not predict, could not control, and could not fully comprehend. As the third day came to a close, the officers and commanders tracking the ship realized one undeniable truth. This was not just a vessel. It was a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that there were forces in the galaxy beyond the Empire's control. Every tactic had failed, every prediction had been wrong, and every plan had been countered. The ship had shown them that intelligence, adaptability, and purpose could outmatch brute force and experience. The Empire, for all its power, history, and confidence, had been challenged in a way it had never faced before. The officers and analysts watching the ship knew that they were witnessing something extraordinary. The ship's journey was a lesson in humility, a reminder that even the most powerful empires could encounter forces beyond their understanding. And as the unknown vessel moved silently through the stars, threading its way through the Empire's fleets, it left behind a clear message. The rules of the galaxy had changed. The Empire was no longer in complete control. Something new, something intelligent, and something beyond comprehension had arrived, and the consequences of its presence were only beginning to unfold. The pursuit continued into the endless void, the officers and fleets adapting, learning, and struggling against a force that seemed always one step ahead. For the first time in its long history, the Empire realized that it was not invincible, and that the galaxy held mysteries and challenges that could not be met with weapons, numbers, or strategy alone. By the fourth day, the Galactic Empire understood that observation and pursuit alone were no longer enough. The mysterious ship had proven itself faster, smarter, and more elusive than anything they had ever encountered. Every fleet sent to intercept it had failed, and the Empire's confidence was slipping. Commanders and analysts alike realized that if they did not find another way to engage, the unknown vessel could move freely through their territory, and the consequences could be serious. The council convened urgently. High-ranking officials, military strategists, and top scientists gathered to discuss the situation. The room was tense, filled with the hum of machinery and the soft clicking of consoles. For the first time, the Empire faced a problem it could not solve with force alone. It was a test of intellect, diplomacy, and patience. A decision was made. They would attempt direct communication. Every known frequency was opened, every language code and hailing protocol activated. Messages were sent, repeated, and repeated again. The council hoped that the ship was intelligent in a way that could be reasoned with. Perhaps it was not hostile, perhaps it was observing or testing or sending a warning. Whatever the purpose, the Empire had to know. Hours passed without a direct response. Officers watched screens tracking the ship's movements while monitoring energy signals. And then, faintly at first, there were anomalies. Patterns in the ship's energy output suggested recognition of the messages. Analysts leaned closer to the displays, heart rates quickening. Every movement, every flicker of power, every subtle shift was studied meticulously. The communication attempts were refined. Scientists created codes and simulations, trying to match the ship's energy patterns to recognizable forms. Every attempt was met with signals that could not be fully decoded. It was intelligent, deliberate, and entirely unfamiliar. The Empire had never encountered technology or strategy like this. Even the most advanced artificial intelligence systems in the fleet could not interpret the signals fully. The officers began to notice something remarkable. The ship's movements changed slightly in response to the communication attempts. It did not stop or attack. It did not accelerate wildly or flee. Instead, it seemed to pause, adjust, and continue along a path that reflected awareness. Every minor maneuver was deliberate, almost like an answer without words. Rumors spread quickly among the fleets and command centers. Some whispered that the ship was human. Others argued it could be an entirely unknown civilization, one that had been hidden in the galaxy for centuries. Whatever it was, the vessel's intelligence was undeniable. It was not merely following pre-programmed instructions, it was thinking, analyzing, and responding. The Council debated their next steps. Should they attempt a more advanced approach, sending probes with complex translation algorithms? Or should they try to force the ship to engage in a controlled area to observe its technology more closely? Every option was fraught with risk. A wrong move could provoke the ship or reveal vulnerabilities in the Empire's defenses. Meanwhile, the fleets continued to track the vessel. Its speed was extraordinary, but it did not behave erratically. Every acceleration, every turn, every subtle change in trajectory seemed calculated. Officers studying the data began to describe it as predictive, as if it could see the future moves of the fleets and adjust accordingly. This was unlike anything they had encountered before. As communication attempts continued, analysts discovered patterns within the signals. There were repetitions, structures, and regular fluctuations that suggested intelligence. It was not random. It was not chaotic. It had intent. Every expert in the room leaned forward, realizing that the ship was not only aware of their attempts, it was engaging with them on its own terms. The Council grew increasingly cautious. They had faced threats before, but this was different. It was not a rebellion, a raid, or an attack. It was a presence that challenged their assumptions, a force that could not be measured with conventional methods. The Empire had always relied on predictability and control, but the unknown ship refused both. Officers aboard the observation station monitored every development. They adjusted their sensors, recalibrated their scanners, and analyzed the faintest signals for clues. Every small anomaly was recorded, every subtle change studied. Even the smallest piece of information could be critical in understanding the vessel's purpose. In one of the command rooms, an analyst pointed out a fascinating detail. The ship's energy fluctuations were not random. They followed mathematical patterns that suggested logic and reasoning. Each response to the Empire's signals was measured, precise, and intentional. The vessel was not just moving through space. It was communicating in a way that the Empire had never seen. The Council debated what this meant. Some argued that if the ship was human, it might be testing them, observing the Empire's response before revealing its purpose. Others suggested it was an entirely new intelligence, one that required patience and careful interpretation. Every theory was speculative, but the evidence of intelligence was undeniable. As the hours turned into days, the pursuit evolved into a delicate dance. The Empire's fleets moved carefully, avoiding actions that might provoke hostility. Analysts continued to refine their communication attempts, sending increasingly sophisticated messages in patterns designed to elicit responses. The unknown ship moved deliberately within this network of observation, testing, and communication. One breakthrough came when analysts noticed repeated sequences in the ship's signals. Although the content could not yet be translated, the pattern suggested an understanding of the Empire's efforts. It was almost as if the ship was acknowledging their presence, analyzing the methods used, and responding in kind. This was a revelation. The Empire had encountered intelligence before, but never like this. The Council recognized that the situation required patience. They could no longer rely on force or speed. They had to observe, interpret, and adapt. Every fleet maneuver, every message sent, every analysis conducted became part of a larger experiment, a test of the unknown vessel's intentions and capabilities. Despite the tension, there was a sense of fascination among the officers. For centuries, the Empire had believed it understood the galaxy. Now, for the first time, it faced a presence that challenged everything it thought it knew. The ship was not just a threat. It was an opportunity to learn, to observe, and to engage with intelligence far beyond previous experience. Rumors among civilians and lower-ranking officers continued to grow. Stories of the ship's intelligence spread through communication networks. Some imagined a marvel, a new form of life, or a hidden human civilization. Others feared a weapon, a harbinger of war. The unknown vessel captured the imagination of the galaxy, even as its movements remained elusive. As days passed, the Council noticed subtle changes in the ship's trajectory. It seemed to respond to attempts at communication with minor adjustments. aligning itself in ways that suggested understanding. Analysts described it as listening and reacting. The Empire realized that this was not an enemy in the traditional sense. It was an intelligent presence, capable of thought, analysis, and response. Despite the growing awareness, frustration remained. Every attempt to decode the signals ended in partial understanding. The ship's intelligence was advanced, its logic unfamiliar, and its motives unclear. Yet the Empire had no choice but to continue trying. Every movement, every signal, every observation mattered. The unknown vessel was teaching them a lesson in patience, strategy, and humility. As the fourth day drew to a close, the fleets continued their careful pursuit. They no longer sought to trap or attack the ship. Instead, they observed, studied, and attempted to engage in a form of communication that was slow, deliberate, and cautious. Analysts worked tirelessly, officers remained alert, and the Council monitored every development with growing fascination and concern. The unknown ship moved steadily through the Empire's space, intelligent, deliberate, and purposeful. It had proven that force alone could not dictate outcomes, that patience and understanding were equally important. The Empire was learning slowly that the galaxy contained intelligence and strategy beyond its control. By the end of the fourth day, one fact was clear. The unknown ship had changed everything. It was not just a presence to be monitored. It was a force that demanded respect, understanding, and adaptation. The Empire realized that the journey ahead would require more than fleets and weapons. It would require thought, observation, and the willingness to confront intelligence far beyond what they had known before. The mysterious ship continued its path through the stars, silent but aware, observing without aggression, responding without revealing its full intent. And the Empire, humbled and alert, knew that the true test had only just begun. By the fifth day, the Galactic Empire could no longer treat the mysterious ship as a simple anomaly. Every fleet maneuver, every scanner reading, and every attempt at communication had revealed the same truth. This was no ordinary vessel. It moved with intelligence, purpose, and technology, far beyond the Empire's current understanding. The officers and analysts tracking it were exhausted, yet they could not look away. The Council met in emergency sessions, their chambers filled with maps, charts, and data feeds streaming in from across the galaxy. The unknown ship had penetrated deep into the Empire's territory, moving through regions considered secure. Its path was deliberate, precise, and frustratingly unpredictable. No historical record, no star chart, and no fleet maneuver could fully anticipate its movements. Commanders debated the implications. Some argued that it could be a test, a probe sent by an unknown civilization to measure the Empire's response. Others feared it was a weapon, capable of devastating entire systems if provoked. The Council realized that traditional strategies, from overwhelming force to ambushes, were useless. They had to adapt, and quickly. Analysts pored over the ship's energy patterns looking for weaknesses or clues. They discovered that its propulsion system was unlike anything in the Empire's records. It accelerated and decelerated with efficiency that defied known physics, and its shields fluctuated in ways that suggested real-time adaptation to any attempted scan or attack. Every detail hinted at a civilization or group with technological sophistication far beyond the Empire's own. Meanwhile, fleets continued to follow the ship, careful not to provoke it. The officers aboard these vessels had begun to notice subtle signals in its movement. The ship did not act randomly. It seemed to respond to their presence with deliberate adjustments. Analysts described it as predictive, as if the ship could foresee the Empire's actions before they occurred. The thought unsettled everyone. It was intelligence beyond normal comprehension. Attempts at communication had evolved. Messages were now carefully constructed, using complex mathematical sequences and energy patterns designed to engage with the ship on a higher level. Analysts hoped that these attempts might reveal its origin, its purpose, or even its intentions. Every new signal was met with subtle responses, small changes in course, energy fluctuations, and patterns that seemed almost conversational. The realization began to spread throughout the Empire. This was not a hostile attack in the traditional sense. The ship had not fired on any fleets, had not destroyed colonies, and had not caused any direct harm. Its actions suggested observation, intelligence, and perhaps a form of strategy that relied on patience rather than aggression. The officers began to see it not only as a challenge but as a teacher, demonstrating capabilities they had never imagined. The civilian populations also took notice. News of the unknown vessel spread through the communication networks. Some feared destruction, imagining weapons beyond imagination. Others were captivated by the mystery, speculating about the advanced technology and intelligence behind the ship. Stories circulated of humans or other hidden civilizations with capabilities far beyond what had been recorded. The unknown ship had captured the imagination of the entire empire, stirring curiosity, fear, and wonder. Within the command rooms, one observation became clear. The ship's intelligence was adaptive. Every attempt to predict its path, to trap it, or to force it into a controlled zone had failed. It adjusted its movements, its energy outputs, and its course in response to every action taken against it. The Empire had never encountered a force so intelligent, so precise, and so elusive. It was becoming clear that the ship's purpose was not destruction, but demonstration, showing capabilities the Empire had never imagined. The Council debated next steps. Some argued that engagement was necessary to understand the ship's full potential. Others suggested continued observation, reasoning that any aggressive move could provoke a reaction they were not prepared for. The room was divided, tension rising with every passing hour. The unknown vessel had already disrupted centuries of confidence in the Empire's control. Officers and analysts worked tirelessly to interpret the faint signals it sent. Repetition, patterns, and structure suggested intentional communication, yet the meaning remained unclear. Every day brought small breakthroughs. A repeated sequence here, a subtle alignment there. Analysts began to piece together a picture, suggesting that the ship could understand the Empire's messages and respond in ways that demonstrated awareness and calculation. Meanwhile, the fleets following the vessel continued their cautious pursuit. The ship's speed, intelligence, and adaptability frustrated commanders, but they also inspired awe. The officers watching it navigate through asteroid fields, debris belts, and gravitational anomalies with ease marveled at the precision of its movements. Every avoidance of danger, every calculated adjustment revealed a level of skill and intelligence far beyond their expectations. As the day wore on, a new perspective began to emerge. The ship's presence was no longer just a problem to solve, it was a revelation. The Empire began to understand that intelligence, adaptability, and strategic patience could outperform brute force. The unknown vessel had taught a lesson without firing a single shot. Power alone was not enough to control the galaxy. Observation, understanding, and strategy were equally, if not more, important. Rumors and speculation reached the highest levels of government. The unknown vessel was described as human, alien, or something entirely unprecedented. Scholars, scientists, and military strategists debated the implications. If it was human, the implications were staggering. Humans had long been underestimated, and the technology suggested a civilization that had been hiding capabilities far beyond what the Empire had imagined. If it was alien, it meant the Empire had discovered a civilization that had advanced undetected for centuries. Regardless of origin, one fact was undeniable. The Empire had been challenged, and it was unprepared. Fleets could not catch the ship, weapons could not harm it, and communication was difficult to decode. The unknown vessel had exposed vulnerabilities in centuries of planning, strategy, and record-keeping. It had revealed the limits of the Empire's knowledge and the potential for forces beyond their control. Officers and analysts began to consider the long-term implications. The unknown vessel's presence suggested that technology and intelligence far beyond the Empire's could exist. It forced them to question assumptions, rethink strategies, and prepare for the possibility that other unknown forces might also exist. The lesson was clear. The galaxy was larger, more complex, and more unpredictable than anyone had imagined. As the fifth day drew to a close, the unknown ship continued its journey. It moved through the Empire's space with purpose, intelligence, and adaptability. It had demonstrated capabilities beyond the Empire's understanding, challenged their assumptions, and forced them to reconsider their place in the galaxy. The officers and analysts watching it realized that this was only the beginning of a story that would reshape everything they thought they knew. For the first time, the Empire saw that intelligence, strategy, and adaptability could rival raw power. They also saw the potential of humans, or another advanced civilization, to change the balance of control in the galaxy. The unknown vessel had revealed the limits of their knowledge, the fragility of their confidence, and the possibility of forces beyond their comprehension. The officers continued to observe, record, and analyze every movement, while the council debated next steps. Every decision carried risk, but every observation offered insight. The unknown ship had become a teacher, a puzzle, and a warning all at once. It had forced the Empire to confront its limitations, adapt to intelligence it could not predict, and prepare for a future in which control was not guaranteed. As night fell across countless worlds, the officers on observation stations and aboard fleets kept their eyes on the stars. The unknown ship moved onward, silent, intelligent, and deliberate. It had shown the Empire a glimpse of a galaxy they had not fully understood, teaching lessons that would shape strategy, science, and philosophy for generations. By the end of the 5th day, one truth was undeniable. The unknown ship had changed the Empire forever. It had revealed that the galaxy contained intelligence, technology, and strategy beyond their comprehension. The Empire had been humbled, challenged, and awed. The path ahead would require patience, understanding, and a willingness to learn from a presence that could not be defeated by force alone. The mysterious vessel continued its journey, leaving behind a legacy of curiosity, caution, and respect. It had demonstrated that true intelligence could operate beyond records, predictions, and raw power. And the Galactic Empire, for the first time, realized that the galaxy was not theirs to command. It was theirs to understand, cautiously and carefully, as the unknown continued to move among the stars. By the 6th day, the Galactic Empire had come to a difficult realization. This was no ordinary encounter. The unknown ship had moved through their space with precision, intelligence, and adaptability that challenged every assumption they had held for centuries. Every attempt to intercept, attack, or communicate had been met with responses that were deliberate, intelligent, and entirely beyond their understanding. The Empire was forced to confront the reality that they were not in full control. The Council convened in emergency sessions, their chambers filled with the tension of uncertainty. High-ranking officers, scientists, and strategists debated the implications of the ship's journey. Some argued that it was a warning, a test, or even a demonstration of power. Others feared that any misstep could provoke hostility. Every decision carried immense risk, yet inaction was equally dangerous. The unknown ship had forced the Empire into a situation it could not dominate through force alone. Meanwhile, fleets continued to shadow the vessel, moving carefully and observing every maneuver. Officers had begun to see patterns in its movements that suggested purpose, not randomness. It avoided collisions, navigated through gravitational anomalies, and responded to the Empire's fleets in ways that hinted at awareness. The ship was intelligent, adaptable, and deliberate. It was teaching them lessons without a single act of aggression. Analysts worked tirelessly to decode the faint signals that accompanied the ship's presence. The energy fluctuations and subtle pulses seemed to contain information, patterns, and perhaps even communication. Each day brought minor breakthroughs, repeated sequences, recognizable rhythms, hints of intelligence, but the full meaning remained elusive. It was clear that the ship was aware of the Empire's attempts to understand it, and was responding in kind. Civilians and lower-ranking officers alike were captivated by the mystery. News of the ship spread rapidly through communication networks. Some imagined it as human ingenuity at its peak, a hidden civilization capable of feats long thought impossible. Others feared it as a weapon, a force that could destroy entire systems without warning. Everywhere, the unknown vessel had become a symbol of both curiosity and caution. As the Empire studied the ship, they began to notice something remarkable. Despite its speed and intelligence, it had not caused harm. No fleets were destroyed, no colonies attacked, no resources taken. Its movements were deliberate, precise, and measured. It had demonstrated the ability to dominate without aggression, to challenge without destruction, and to teach lessons through presence rather than force. The Council began to reassess their strategies. The old methods of overwhelming power, blockade, and direct confrontation had failed. They had no choice but to adapt, to observe, to learn. Officers were instructed to focus on intelligence gathering, studying the ship's behavior, energy patterns, and communication methods. Every fleet maneuver, Every sensor reading and every response was documented meticulously. The Empire was in uncharted territory. One breakthrough came when analysts observed that the ship seemed to respond to specific patterns in the Empire's signals. Small course adjustments, energy pulses, and minor speed changes suggested recognition and deliberate reaction. The ship was not simply moving through space. It was engaging, interacting, and testing the Empire's ability to understand. For the first time, there was a sense of dialogue, even if indirect, between the Empire and the vessel. The implications were profound. The Empire had always relied on control, predictability, and overwhelming force. This encounter showed that intelligence, adaptability, and patience could surpass power. The unknown ship had demonstrated capabilities the Empire could not match through conventional means. It was a lesson in humility, strategy, and the limits of knowledge. Officers began to discuss possibilities. Could the ship be human, a relic of a secret civilization, or the result of centuries of hidden development? Or was it an entirely unknown species, observing the Empire and teaching a lesson in patience and strategy? Whatever the origin, the technological and intellectual capabilities it displayed were staggering. The Empire had underestimated forces it could not predict. Fleets continued to follow the ship carefully, maintaining distance while recording every detail. Officers noticed that the ship's path, while deliberate, often aligned with regions of scientific or strategic interest. It seemed to navigate not just through space but through knowledge, passing near research stations, observing fleets, and interacting subtly with the Empire's systems. The vessel's presence was teaching the Empire in ways that no battle or negotiation ever could. The Council began to consider the long-term consequences. This ship was not merely an anomaly, it was a symbol of intelligence beyond the Empire's current understanding. If one vessel could operate with such efficiency and awareness, what other unknown forces might exist? The galaxy, they realized, was far larger, more complex, and more unpredictable than they had ever imagined. As the sixth day continued, analysts noticed subtle shifts in the ship's energy patterns. The sequences suggested not just intelligence but comprehension, calculation, and perhaps even judgment. The vessel was aware of the Empire's presence, observing and responding in a way that reflected understanding. It had chosen not to engage violently, but its capability to do so was clear. Every movement, every signal, and every decision revealed a level of awareness that challenged centuries of assumptions. Officers began to speak openly about the lessons they were learning. The Empire's control was not absolute. Intelligence could surpass power, strategy could outmatch force, and patience, observation, and understanding were as important as fleets and weapons. The unknown ship had forced them to rethink their place in the galaxy, to reconsider assumptions, and to prepare for a reality in which power alone did not guarantee dominance. Civilians continued to watch the skies with fascination and apprehension. Stories of the vessel circulated across worlds, a marvel of technology, a hidden human civilization, or an entirely unknown species. People speculated about its origin, purpose, and intelligence. The unknown ship had captured the imagination of the galaxy, inspiring awe, curiosity, and respect. By the evening, the Council reached a tentative conclusion. They could no longer pursue the ship aggressively, nor could they ignore it. Instead, they would focus on observation, understanding, and preparation. Every fleet, sensor, and analyst would contribute to learning from this extraordinary presence. The Empire realized that engagement did not always mean confrontation. Sometimes the greatest lessons came from patience and study. As night fell across countless worlds, the unknown ship continued its journey. It moved silently, deliberately, and intelligently, leaving behind a trail of observation, insight, and awe. Its presence had changed the Empire forever. For centuries, the Empire had believed it understood the galaxy. Now, for the first time, it knew that intelligence, strategy, and purpose could operate beyond records, predictions, and brute force. The officers, analysts, and commanders watching the vessel understood one undeniable truth. The ship had reshaped their understanding of the galaxy. It had demonstrated that power alone was insufficient, that strategy and intelligence could surpass overwhelming force, and that patience and observation were crucial in understanding forces beyond comprehension. The Council reflected on the lessons learned. The unknown ship had forced the Empire to confront its limitations, rethink strategies, and prepare for a future in which control was not guaranteed. It had revealed the potential of humans or other civilizations to operate beyond conventional understanding, challenging assumptions and inspiring both awe and caution. By the end of the 6th day, the Empire had reached a new understanding. The ship was no longer a threat to be destroyed, nor merely a puzzle to be solved. It was a presence to be studied, respected, and learned from. Its intelligence, adaptability, and deliberate actions had transformed the Empire's perception of the galaxy and its place within it. The unknown vessel continued through the stars, silent but aware, moving with purpose and intelligence. Its journey had demonstrated that power could be matched by strategy, that control was not absolute, and that intelligence, patience, and understanding were forces to be reckoned with. The Galactic Empire had been challenged, humbled, and enlightened, and as the fleets continued their careful observation, the Council realized that this encounter was not the end, but the beginning. The unknown ship had shown them a new way to see the galaxy, a place where intelligence, adaptability, and patience mattered as much as power and fleets. The Empire would never be the same again. The mysterious vessel moved on, leaving behind a galaxy that had learned humility, curiosity, and respect. Its presence had changed history, challenged assumptions, and reshaped the future. And for the first time, the Galactic Empire understood that the galaxy was not theirs to command. It was theirs to observe, understand, and learn from, one deliberate movement at a time.